How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the many interpretations of Baryonyx. We will be looking at various different media interpretations of the first confirmed dinosaur to have a piscivorous diet. This is incredibly exciting. Baryonyx is absolutely awesome, one of my favorite Spinosaurids, and it's one that we have a pretty good idea of what it looked like, as well as just one that is just incredibly awesome in and of itself. But first, I'm going to get a few announcements out of the way at the beginning of the video. If you want to skip that, of course, you can just go through the little chapters portion, or I'll just put up the timestamp and you can just get straight to the video. But for those of you who want updates on the series, that's what I'm going to talk about. Now, some of you may have already seen with my most recent community post that I am removing the Velociraptor from the poll, from the current poll that we have going on. And I asked all of you to suggest which one should be replacing it, and it seemed that the winner of that was Dilophosaurus. So Dilophosaurus will be replacing Velociraptor in the remaining poll until, of course, it wins. And so that's awesome. Dilophosaurus is one of my favorite dinosaurs, and I'm incredibly excited to talk about it. This series will also be slowing down a little bit, and that's mainly because I have a lot on my plate right now. I am juggling a lot of different things, and this series does garner a lot of my time to get finished. And beforehand, I was pushing for kind of a once a week schedule for this video. I might be trying for once bi-weekly or once a week and a half or something along those lines. I'm not too sure yet. For now, I'm just kind of working with things and kind of figuring out what works best. But yeah, those are pretty much the updates for this little series. So let's go ahead and get straight into the video. We don't really have too much to look for in Baryonyx because it doesn't really show up a lot in media, which is pretty unfortunate. As I said before, it's a very cool dinosaur and a very interesting looking dinosaur. One that really offers a lot of insight about the family of Spinosauridae as a whole. So it's really unfortunate that we don't see it too much, but oh well, maybe we will see more of it in the future. But let's go ahead and get right into it. First things first is Eyewitness Dinosaur, released in 1994. There's a brief little appearance. It's primarily focused on through the skull of Baryonyx, which the skull looks awesome. But we briefly get, I think, a stop motion appearance of the animal as it swallows some fish. That's accurate, of course. If I'm not mistaken, Baryonyx is the first example that we have of a piscivorous diet in non-avian dinosaurs, because if I remember correctly, we did find fish scales in its stomach contents. I hope I am correct about that. If I am not correct about that, I will have a correction right here. But in any case, it was a dinosaur that was piscivorous in its diet. Its design here has a very long skinny neck. It's pretty shrink wrapped in general and has pretty bland colors, but I do think it's pretty decent for its time, taking that influence from crocodilians because the snout is very crocodile-like in appearance. So that's often where a lot of influence for Baryonyx designs come from. So it's pretty harmless. I think it does match up decently well to what we thought Baryonyx looked like at the time. So pretty good. Next up is Dinosaur King. It also looks fantastic here, very stylized for the show that it's in, as well as the arcade game, of course. Has some spikes that run all the way down its back. Don't really think that we have evidence for that in Baryonyx, but the colors are very cool. It has the longer arms, something that Baryonyx also did have. And one thing I will point out quite a bit is the claw. And the reason why I will point that out, its innermost claw on its hand. And the reason why I will point that out is because that's the reason why Baryonyx was named. It had two massive claws, one on each hand, that gave it the name of Baryonyx, which translates to heavy claw. It's thought that could have been used as kind of like a fish hook, maybe scooping out fish from the water, and my cat's shaking the camera, but it's possible they used that in its hunting style, and it's something that is a key identifying trait for Baryonyx. So I'd say it's pretty important to include it in the design. You can tell that one of the claws is larger than the other ones. So I think it's really good here, as well as the snout looking absolutely fantastic, and the colors are pretty fun too. So yeah, that's the Dinosaur King Baryonyx. Then Ice Age. Ice Age 3, Dawn of the Dinosaurs. Baryonyx does get a prominent role, kind of a prominent role. We don't see it too much, but it is named and is kind of the primary villain of the movie, known as Rudy. This completely white Baryonyx with some osteoderms, absolutely massive, dwarfing the T-Rex, which was already huge. Like, the dinosaurs in this movie were already scaled up, and a lot of that was likely due for dramatic effect because dinosaurs, but because the Baryonyx is just bigger than the T-Rex means that it's absolutely astronomically big compared to the real-life Baryonyx, which is horrifying. But It's extremely stylized for Ice Age 3 and is a very Ice Age-like dinosaur. And I think he looks cool. I like his story dynamic with Buck, the fact that he lost a tooth and that's Buck's knife. I think that's very fun. He does have one claw that's a little bit bigger than the other ones and just looks cool. Has these red eyes and these kind of interlocking teeth, and his roar is also incredibly awesome. Little fun fact, when I first saw the trailers when I was a child, I thought that he was a Spinosaurus because you see like a quick shot and that's of Mama Rex like starting to shove into him. And because it was so quick in the trailer, I was like, oh shoot, Spinosaurus. And also as I was watching the movie, there was this shot right here where Rudy is walking by and you could see a shadow. And as he's walking, the shadow kind of warps over a rock. And I was like, oh shoot, that's its tail. I just didn't notice that the tail shadow also warped that way. I was just certain that he was a Spinosaurus, but turns out he is the smaller cousin of Spinosaurus, a Baryonyx. People are often surprised when I say that, but yep, Baryonyx, Rudy. Then we get into the Land Before Time franchise. According to Google, these fellows right here are Baryonyxes. I'm not really too sure if that's correct, but it does seem to check out. They do kind of share a basic resemblance to that of the Spinosaurus in the Land Before Time franchise. Of course, I think that it shows up in the show, the Land Before Time show, which is a project that aired way after my time. So they're not really something I'm familiar with, but they do have a very decent design. Like, I mean, something that certainly fits the style of Land Before Time. It looks like this one has some scarring, which is something that I feel is a little bit more common with the newer Land Before Time projects. And according to Google, I think that they're referred to as hook thumbs, which is probably in reference to the massive claw that Baryonyx had. So that's a cool little Easter egg, I suppose. But yeah, and they come in a wide array of different colors, which is definitely really fun. It offers a little bit of variety, and yeah, I think they're pretty fun. The very fun documentary, Dinosaur Britain. This design is gorgeous. I think this design is still incredibly accurate to our understanding of Baryonyx today. The skeleton shape matches up incredibly well. The snout looks awesome. It has the huge claw. Its arms are long. It has the huge back legs. And again, back to the skull, because I think the skull looks incredible. It has this kind of crest right before its eyes on its snout, as well as the nostrils being raised. I think everything looks fantastic in this design. And the colors are kind of muted, but just in a colorful kind of way. If that makes sense. It probably does not make sense, but I think it makes sense, and that's what's important to me in this moment right now. I just think that this design looks incredible and might be my favorite one that we've seen, that we might be looking at. I'm not too sure yet, but I think it looks fantastic. Then we move on to Jurassic World. And every time I say this, I get flack. Anytime I get the opportunity to say this. I do not like the Jurassic World Baryonyx design. It's mainly just a preference thing. I am a huge fan of the way that Baryonyx looks in terms of our current understanding of the animal. I like the how slender that snout is, and I just don't like it. A lot of people have called it Crocosaurus, and I think that that's fitting. Yes, Baryonyx and other Spinosaurids are similar to crocodilians, to modern day crocodilians, but they are also extremely different too. They have different features. And I know that people will say that they're hybrids and whatnot, and I don't care. I don't like the design. I really don't. I don't like the osteoderms that go down. I think that this snout is just too thick, too wide. It's kind of boring. If you ask me, it's just a bit boring, and it is made worse when you look at the website design of the animal. I think that one looks great. Look at this. Like, the colors are really popping. I think that the blue around the eye looks really cool. They gave it the small amounts of feathers or quills on the top of its head and on its arms, which is a nice little flare to help the animal stand out. And in terms of Jurassic designs, this would have stood out from other theropod dinosaurs. It looks so different. Heck, it would have stood out significantly compared to the Spinosaurus. But instead, we got a design that looked more like this, and its claw isn't even as big as it should be. It's named Heavy Claw, and the claw's not even heavy. What's up with that? In the Jurassic World design, it's decently heavy. Like, okay, if you're a fan of the Jurassic World Baryonyx design, then that is completely awesome. It's just, this is my personal preference. I'm not a fan of it. Of course, we do get some color variation in Camp Cretaceous, and I think that those colors are a little bit better, especially with the green one. I think that's a little bit more fun to see. But overall, I'm just not the biggest fan of this design. Now, with video games, Baryonyx does not show up too frequently either, but most frequently in Jurassic Park or World games. The first appearance that I know of is in the Lost World Jurassic Park, the Game Gear game, and it has a little appearance where it's got a really long neck, and it's very pixelated, of course, because of the game that it's in, and it just kind of pops out of the water and, tries to get you. Very fun to see, especially considering the fact that it's kind of a lesser known dinosaur. I love seeing it a little bit more. Or in Jurassic Park 3, Park Builder, you get one that actually looks really cool in terms of the colors. Its skeleton shape, I think, matches up pretty decent, and we see it in the water too. A lot of water ones, but of course, because that makes sense. I like it here. I think it looks fantastic. Or in Jurassic Park Builder, I remember getting these guys when I played the game. I think it looks so cool in here, especially when you level it up and you get, the cooler colors. I mean, I think the snout's a little bit too wide for my liking, but I think it's pretty decent. And then in Jurassic World, the game, they of course designed it after the movie version, so that's pretty standard in terms of that. But of course, you do get to upgrade these dinosaurs, and they do change in appearance, most significantly at 31 to 40, where we get this. Very, very porcupine, has a ton of spikes all over it, but I do like the kind of lighter blues, I guess, with the darker blues. I think that's kind of fun. So yeah, that's just a little bit notable right there. Or in Lego Jurassic World, it's basically just the Spinosaurus, the Lego Jurassic World Spinosaurus, but with the sail removed. And that's fair. It probably saved some money in the budget, and it gave you a Baryonyx. So that's very cool. I think it looks pretty decent too. I've said it many times, but I do like Lego versions of these animals. I've said that so many times, and I'm sure many people are getting tired of that. But it's true. I think it looks really cool here. Jurassic World Alive offers some really cool color variation on the model that I'm not the biggest fan of. And it goes to show how color can kind of make a difference, at least in my eyes. Because I think that, say, this one looks really cool, and this red one, I think, is really cool too, this red and black one. I think that they help the animal pop a little bit more. I'm still not the biggest fan of the model, but I think that the colors do help quite a bit in terms of that. So yeah, that right there I think is an improvement. The same thing goes for Jurassic World Evolution, where you get to add different colors to the animal, and I think that some of those can help improve. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I know that this game didn't really get the chance to live, essentially, and that's Jurassic World Primal Ops. But I think that at some point Baryonyx was added with kind of a tweaked design. The snout's a little bit thinner. It still has the osteoderms and the basic colors, but it's given these kind of crests, and that looks awesome. This looks absolutely awesome. If this is true, if it was tweaked for this game, I think it's a huge improvement across the board. Even though they kept the same colors and the osteoderms and whatnot, I think it looks really, really cool. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but if that is the case, I think that this was awesome. This is probably one of my favorite ones in terms of this variation of Baryonyx. Then we move on to Ark Survival Evolved. This one also looks really cool. Now, I really like the kind of loading screen art or the cover art where you get to see a Baryonyx. At least I hope that's a Baryonyx. That might be a Suchomimus. Let me check real quick. I don't know if Suchomimus is in the game. If it is, that's embarrassing. Well, I can't really find an answer, so I'm just going to assume the worst and say that that's maybe not a Baryonyx. But the Baryonyx in the game does look really good. I think that the skull looks awesome. The hands look pretty decent. Like I can't really make out if one of the claws is more prominent, but I do think that this does look really good. I think it's the right kind of thin. The spikes are interesting and kind of help it stand out, but the snout especially I think looks fantastic. But yeah, no, that's a very good design that I think is very appealing to look at. Then in Paleopines, now Paleopines has one of the claws a little bit more large than the other ones. Crazy. Yeah, but the skull is very cool. I think the overall body looks really cool. The colors look really nice. The snout is a little bit more stubby, but the game is extremely stylized for its game. That was probably done to help the Baryonyx look a little bit more appealing. I think I would be able to tell that this was Baryonyx by looking at it, by that basic silhouette. So I think that they accomplished what they set out to do. I think it's a very fun design. Then the Isle. I think Legacy looked incredible, especially with the kind of animations and everything that was given. I don't think it's been added to Evrima yet, but I know that we have the design for it in Evrima, and wow, That looks awesome. Look at this. The whole body, I think, looks really good. One of the claws is larger than the other two on its hand. Its snout looks very good. It's got this kind of S-curved neck, which is very cool to see. The colors look awesome, these base colors, and it has lips, which is something that we don't typically see with Spinosaurids because it's kind of tricky on whether or not they did have lip. It's probably tricky on whether or not any theropod dinosaur had lips, but other dinosaurs are definitely a lot more likely than Spinosaurids. I don't necessarily know what the best answer for it is because we don't really know the extent of how semi-aquatic Spinosaurids were. Assuming that they spent most of their time hunting like a heron lifestyle, then chances are they would have lips, and a lot do seem to be in agreement with that, and honestly, that's something that I personally would like to see more of. I do think that lips on Spinosaurids are probably likely, but that's probably just a discussion for another time. But anyway, lips are present on the Rima design, and I think they do make the animal look really nice. I think it's a very, very cool design that stands out. In Fossil Fighters, this one's pretty good too. Mainly, I really like the colors. The colors look really cool. You got the blacks with the blues and the reds, a very red eye, and a snout that is pretty wide, but I think it looks pretty cool. I can tell that one of the claws is larger than the other one, so huge props right there. Always very important to include on your Baryonyx design. I think that they definitely accomplished their mission of portraying Baryonyx in a very stylized, fun way, and I like it. I think it's a very fun design. Then I know that at one point Baryonyx was kind of like semi-announced for Prehistoric Kingdom. I don't know the extent on how likely it is for it to be added. I hope that it will be added because look at this. This looks very cool. It kind of has a nice crest right on at the end of its snout. The whole skeleton shape looks very good. It has the massive claw, and a lot of these colors that it looks like you could potentially give it, I think, look awesome. If this does get added to the game, I think it would be a very fun addition. Who knows when that would be because I don't really know the exact timeline of most creatures being added to the game. But if this does get added, I think it would be a very fun addition, and I would definitely put it in my parks, assuming I fix my PC by then. And that is the extent of it. I was not really able to find too much. If, of course, there were some that I missed, be sure to let us all know in the comments. Just let us know some of your favorite Baryonyx designs that I probably didn't know about. I'd love to hear about them. But those were some that I was able to find. But yeah, Baryonyx has a pretty consistent design across the board. I think that for the most part, people really do nail it. Even the Jurassic World design, though I'm not necessarily a fan of it, I do think it does have some merits. And I think it's a really good dinosaur to kind of portray in those sort of ways. It is a very important dinosaur for our understanding of a whole family of dinosaurs, basically. And also, fun fact, it was discovered by an amateur paleontologist. So that's really cool. It's always cool when stuff like that happens. Anyway, this was a fun video to make. The poll will be going up here pretty soon, and I will be doing the polls differently than I have in the past. Instead of just having 4 of them and then 1 winning, and then I keep the 3, but then I add a new one. I won't be doing that anymore. Instead, I'll just be like, it'll be 4, and then 1 of them will win, and then we'll have 3 on the next poll, and then 1 of them will win, and then we'll have 2 on the next poll, and then 1 will win, and then the last one is the one we'll do the final video on. That's kind of my whole plan on doing it, because otherwise a lot of dinosaurs will kind of get the short end of the stick, and we won't get to be able to see them for a while. Take Edmontosaurus, for example. It was sitting on those poles for a long time. So I don't really want that to happen with any other future animals that we do, so that's the overall plan. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, or for those who have missed it, the Velociraptor will be replaced by Dilophosaurus, which is an animal that doesn't have as many media interpretations as you might think. So that won't be too crazy of a long video. The Velociraptor will be saved for another milestone video, maybe 20,000 or something along those lines. I'm not too sure yet, but we will of course figure it out. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.